All right, you're watching the Sports Roundup Show. This is our NBA segment, talking about the best in the NBA this week and moving forward. Starting off with the Lakers, they've won 7 in a row, right? They're the hottest team in the NBA. But these last few weeks, they've had some trouble early in games, and had to go to overtime three games in a row. And I was a little surprised. I don't know if you saw this stat. It was the first time that the Lakers had three straight overtime games since 1992. So it taken almost 30 years for the Lakers to have that happen.
Yeah, Mike, I saw that. I'm like, first of all, that's a shocker that even
Yeah.
happened. I was thinking, dang, so that happened before. But then, yeah, so what's that? 19 years, the last 20
That's
years?
29. No, 29 years.
Oh yeah, my bad. Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
Mike, I can't do math now. Calm down, Mike. My
Almost
bad.
30 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
30.
but yeah, that's just pretty cool because I guess 92 the Lakers were didn't have really a great season, right? I think Magic Johnson had just retired right in 91.
Yep.
So I think that was kind of a tough year. So that's that I don't think that would have happened in the 80s, right? Because the Lakers used to win by 20 points every night in the 80s, but 92 I think they missed the playoffs that year if I'm not mistaken, or they
Yes.
almost missed it.
Yep. I think you are correct. And for this go around, these three overtimes, Mike, it shouldn't have happened. To be honest, you played two of them versus OKC last night versus the Grizzlies. Shout out to John Morantho, great player. So maybe you see that one a little bit can carry his team, but no.
No,
Uh,
the overtime, the first one was against the Pistons.
Sorry, yeah, yeah, my bad.
Yeah.
The Pistons and
Yeah, that was a double overtime game. Yeah. That was
um,
a crazy game, that Pistons game.
Mike.
No Anthony Davis. They kind of were shorthanded, but LeBron, wow, what a double overtime that was for LeBron James. Really carried the team. And that was a great win. But it shouldn't have been an overtime game, right? I mean, the Pistons without Blake Griffin somehow made it to overtime with the Lakers.
If I'm correct, Mike, they have seven of the Pistons wins, Mike, have all came against over 500 teams,
That's
um,
strange, yeah.
or teams that are destined for the playoffs or have a big chance of winning championships. So these Pistons are playing hard. And I do want to say this about those overtime games. I, I'm hard on LeBron a lot, but he comes through when the big moments count.
Yeah,
Those three overtime games that you mentioned, if it wasn't for LeBron, of course, it definitely would be because we'd have Anthony Davis. But if it wasn't for LeBron, uh, yeah, they they wouldn't have won. And Mike, I don't know if I want to say this too. I don't know if you have noticed, uh, he has gotten way better with his 3 point shot. As
yeah,
he
for
gotten
sure.
older, less athleticism, but his 3 point shot has gotten better.
Yeah, I know that I've noticed that, especially this season. He's really shooting the ball very well. He's almost looking like a point guard out there. I know he's a Lakers point guard, but I mean, he actually looks like a real point guard, right? At times, like he actually can pass the ball and shoot the ball, and it's crazy, huh? Because I know, like when he first started in the NBA, he was not that kind of guy at all, right? Remember, he was just all about post play, slam dunks. He didn't even pass the ball very much early on. Remember, a lot of people criticized him for being a ball hog, and now I mean, this guy is like a all around guy, and even plays defense too, right? He comes back, makes steals, makes a lot of great passes in transition as well. I've noticed that. Like just I think this year LeBron is playing his best year as a Laker in the first 3 years. I mean, he's looking better than he did last year.
I like that point right there because as you get older, some stuff people know your tactics and whatnot, so you have to evolve. You saw it with Jason Kidd, um, other players, the Kevin Garnett's, the Tim Duncans. So you have to add other stuff to your game. Even though you're older, you still gotta add other stuff to your game to stay in the league, of course, but just to also just get better as a player. And those full court passes that LeBron is good at, and his 3 point shot, just like a la Jason Kidd, who's assistant coach right now with the Lakers also. Um, you gotta evolve your game as you get older because you might start losing some athleticism. So um, yeah, this is definitely throughout the 3 year run the best LeBron. Um, I'm not gonna lie, he is up there in the MVP discussion also.
Yeah, I think he is, especially now. Let's switch it over. We've talked about LeBron, but everybody else. I mean, this Laker team has kind of disappointed, right? I mean, they got a lot of new guys, but they just haven't really fit in correctly yet. I mean, Schroeder has been inconsistent. Marcus All invisible pretty much. Uh, Montrezl Harrell hasn't really been. I mean, he's been good, but inconsistent as well. And I don't know what you think. I mean, this team is just maybe they're not as good as last year's team. Last year's team was probably better. And I don't know. We'll see how that works in the playoffs, right? Because LeBron, I mean, eventually he's going to get tired, right? I mean, we saw that. I think we saw that last year in the second half. Well, we didn't really have a second half of the year, but I mean, we did see him kind of slow down a little bit, right, last season. So I wonder if he has a little slowdown this year, how the team is going to respond.
Mike, you should be a scout because um, everything you just said, I couldn't say it better because I want to point out the major things you just said. These people who on the team who look like they're invisible, Marc Gasol, agree 100%, and Schroeder, I'll give him sometimes he does play a little bit good depending on the competition, but KCP, who else? Wesley Matthews, Taylor Horton Tucker, Caruso.
Yeah,
Some of these,
Caruso's been a big disappointment this year, right? I mean, he's not even getting a lot of playing time, right? I mean, Frank Vogel's had to put him on the bench because he's been just not at all at the NBA. Pretty much, he's playing at like a G League level this year, right? I mean, and Frank Vogel just has him on the bench.
yeah. And it looks like Anthony Davis too. I know he has had a lot of injuries. He's injury prone every year, but he hasn't lived up to what he's been used to, what we're used to Anthony Davis. And I'll be honest, if it wasn't for LeBron, our record for the Lakers would be worse because, like I said, KCP last night, Mike, versus the Grizzlies, I didn't even notice him. I'm looking at the end of the game. I'm like, oh yeah, KCP, he does play. So other than LeBron, I will say this: Kuzma does play. He has been playing pretty hard with a lot of injury, but yeah, a lot of players.
Then remember, was the game against Oklahoma? KCP with that foul on the end of the game, right? That ended the game. Was the foul was on Shea? It was on Shea Gilgeous, right? On the 3-point shot.
Shea.
And that was of course a big. The Lakers won that game, but that could have lost the game there for them.
So, and I'm looking, Mike, at these stats. They're number one in defense, blocks and charges and all this. But I'm telling you, Mike, it is because of the competition. I was telling you the other day, you played OKC twice and Detroit in overtime. You shouldn't even have gotten overtime, but you get the wins. You play these other teams coming up in overtime, they're not going to get these wins. So they're going to have to step their game up. Because even though they're first, but the competition they've been playing has not been great, in my opinion.
Yeah, so tomorrow night, they got the Nuggets in Denver. That's going to be a tough game. Tuesday night, they got the Minnesota, so they'll win that one. But then they actually have to come all the way back home and play Brooklyn. So that's going to be a tough game. Thursday is going to be their biggest test of the season. Going to have Durant, Harden, and Kyrie all out there. And that's going to be a big, big test, right, on this team. LeBron is going to have to probably have a big game for them to have a chance to win this one, right? Because, it's going to be high scoring, in my opinion. I mean, the Nets don't have good defense at all. They're going to put up 100, 120 points, 130 points, and it's pretty much going to be who could score the most points in that Lakers-Nets game because that's just how those games usually go with the Brooklyn Nets.
Mike, the rest of the schedule, and then even though they haven't announced the second half of the schedule yet,
yeah, we don't know yet. Yeah,
it's still this is when it's going to start getting tougher because a lot of these second half of the schedule games are going to be. I know off the top of my head, they haven't went to Brooklyn yet. They haven't went to Miami. They haven't went to New York. They're playing better. That's why I said New York. The Hornets are playing better. It's a lot of East Coast teams that they haven't went to. And then for the rest of this schedule, you mentioned the Nets. The Heat come in on next Saturday. The Wizards, even though they're a bad team, but you never know with Westbrook and Bill, the Jazz, the Trailblazers, the Warriors, the Suns, and then you finish off the first half with the Kings. So now it's going to start to look like a tougher schedule coming up, even with the second half to see what the Lakers can do.
And then you look at the schedule too. The Lakers have no more like back-to-back games with the same team. in this first half. Remember how early in the year the Lakers had a lot of games with like 2 against the Jazz or 2 against the Pistons and 2 against the Thunder or 2 against the Grizzlies, right? So now the rest of the first half they're going to have a different team every night, so that makes it tougher too, because those back-to-back games I think always favor the better team.
Mike, I agree 100%. There is no. I would have betted money. Like I said, it went to overtime, so my money would have been a little scared. But I would have betted money. There's no way the Lakers would have lost twice to OKC. If
Yeah,
you gonna lose two straight to OKC earlier in the year when they played the Rockets when they were down bad.
they play the Grizzlies without Jay Morant. Remember
So
twice? Yeah,
because you're staying inside the same hotel with the schedule how it is this year, so no traveling like you mentioned, and then the Lakers are better, even though some players haven't been playing good. The Lakers are still better than other teams, and you get to scout them again, so you already know how they play for the second game. So yeah, I'm with you, definitely on that.
and then those are the we haven't seen the second half of the schedule, but I really think that they're not going to do that in the second half. I don't think the back-to-back games are sticking. I think a lot of people didn't like it. I think it didn't favor the bad teams. It really bolstered the records of the good teams, and I think we're going to go to a normal schedule the second half. And we don't know yet, but I mean, I think the NBA is going to look into that. Those back-to-back games against the same team.
Mike, and that's funny you say that because what you know, a lot of these records have been looking weird. A lot of 14s, 14s, 12, 12, 13, 13. So a lot of these records are pretty much 500, and it's because of those back-to-back games, because either 1-1 wins or like you
Yeah.
said 2-2, but then yeah, I've never seen records like this before. Mike, I was thinking about this the other day. That's why it's funny that you bring this up. Like it's almost every team other than like the top three teams for maybe each conference are pretty much 500 almost.
Yeah.
So
You never see that in the NBA, right?
you never see that.
Yeah,
So
but it's all because of the schedule.
the second half is probably going to be hopefully fans maybe even bring that
Yeah.
aspect. So
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's 12 of the 30 teams have fans in, so I mean, that number's just going to keep going up. I don't know when California is going to have fans, but I mean, we're almost at 50% of the arenas having fans.
we last, Mike. California, we last.
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, almost half of the arenas do have fans, so that's a great sign, right? Playing indoors, I know they have a limited capacity, but I mean, Utah has 4,000 fans in there now, so that's a pretty big number, and it's only going to help them. Talking about Utah, they're the best team in the NBA right now, 21-5. They got a couple big games next week against the Clippers here in LA, maybe without Paul George. But Utah looks like maybe they're a championship contender. They've never won an NBA championship. What a year it would be to finally win one in 2021.
Mike, LeBron James is a basketball historian, so he knows everything about the league, the ins and outs of everything. I lived in Utah for 2 years growing up.
Yeah.
3 years. No, yeah, two. I forget 3 years growing up. They hate the Lakers. When I tell you, Mike, they hate the Lakers. The Utah Jazz fans hate the Lakers because I used to
Do they
have
hate them more than the Chicago Bulls?
Mike. I think so because I had Lakers geared and
All
yeah,
right.
my dad and everything. Yeah, so they they used to get on us bad, Mike, and it wasn't funny bad. It was they just hated us.
Right.
So to my point, LeBron, if the fans come back, remember at the start of the season, it was about 1,000. You said it's 4,000 now. 3 months from now, if they get back to the 20,000 full capacity, you do not want to play in Utah with that crowd, Mike. You know how loud it gets from just
Yeah, it's really loud there. Yeah.
you do not want to play in Utah. So that's why I think LeBron goes super hard to win as many games as possible versus these bad teams, because you do not want to go to Utah in a 7-game series.
Yeah, I mean, they want to be that number one seed. The Lakers always strive for that. I know other teams don't really look for that, but the Lakers, we know every year they're always trying to be number one, right? They want to be top of the Western Conference, and that's what they're trying to do. And the Jazz and Lakers, I mean, it's going to be really exciting to see who gets it. But I don't know. We'll see. It's still early, right? Utah, they could be hit or miss, right? They're very streaky, and then they can really fall, right? So we'll see how it goes. But I really like Utah's defense this year. I think they've finally figured it out. They've always been a good defensive team, but I think this year they are maybe the best in the NBA.
I would say everybody might, because it used to be,
Yeah.
just be Rudy Gobert, but now
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah, Mike Conley's bought in, Donovan Mitchell, everybody's playing defense, and they're maybe the best in the NBA, and that category. We know in the league right now, I mean, defense is just not a priority, unfortunately. And Utah, it is. So I want to thank everybody for watching today's show. Make sure you like and subscribe to our page. And have a good week, everybody.